Hi, folks. Welcome to this screencast on the body's immune response or the immune system. So, last video, what we talked about was the body's first line of defense. This time, what we're actually going to talk about is now what happens when a pathogen slips by that first line of defense. How does the body deal with it? How does it destroy it, get rid of it, remove it, or remember it for future exposures? So there's some important things to know. Basically, everything that in here that I put a dot next to will be something that you will want to remember. So whether it be a type of white blood cell, different types of proteins like antibodies or antigens, um, you'll want to know what they do and what their role is. And so there's 12 steps to this immune response. And basically on your diploma exam, what you can expect is you can expect to either know the roles of each of these components of the immune response, or you'll also need to be required to put these steps in order from exposure to um, to the time that the immune response is suppressed and back to normal functioning. Now, they might only give you 4 of these, for example, but you'll have to put them in proper order. So we'll start at the beginning. So you just follow along with this little diagram step by step. So it's got 12 components to it. You can see the numbers here. Like if you look at this 1 here, okay, and then this has a 2, you'll notice that we can follow these steps throughout. So the first thing that's going to happen is the foreign invader is going to have these little protein markers, and they're called antigens. So basically what's going to happen now is that foreign invader has now entered the skin, past the first line of defense into our body. So the foreign invader carries, or it has these antigens on it, these protein markers. Well, the second step, what's going to happen is this thing called the macrophage. So it's a big, large cell, and it's a white blood cell. Remember, white blood cells have a nucleus, so they're really smart, and there are disease fighters in our body. So now, what happens is this macrophage is going to engulf the pathogen. You can see it kind of swallowing it up right here. So now what it's going to do, once that macrophage has swallowed up and it's engulfed that pathogen, it's going to place the antigen's protein markers on its membrane. So now once those protein markers are on the membrane, we have this new cell. So step number 4, and it is called the helper T cell. So the helper T cell now is going to recognize those protein markers as foreign invaders, and it's going to send these chemical signals here. And it's going to send those signals to the B cells, and it's also going to send those signals to the killer T cells, and it's going to activate those cells. Now, B cells are another white blood cell, and they actually mature in bone marrow. And what's going to happen, they're going to receive those chemical signals here. And now what they're going to do is they're going to start producing what we call antibodies. So now if you can see these little Y-shaped structures, these are the antibodies. Now antibodies, it's important to note, they do not kill the pathogen or destroy it. Their role is to slow the pathogen down. So now they bind to these protein markers, and they slow the pathogen down. You can see that in step 8 here. Now these Y's, like right here, is binding to that antigen. And so it's slowing it down. So then in step 9, what happens is that slowed pathogen now is then destroyed by that macrophage, that big white blood cell. Now what happens here is, once that is done, is we'll look up here, is the antigen now is going to be attached, and those killer T cells are going to move through the body now. And so the killer T cells are going to destroy any any mutated or infected cells. And you can see this killer T cell right here. So now what happens after the killer T cells has killed any infected cells, and the B cells have produced a ton of antibodies, and they've slowed down the pathogen. The macrophages have engulfed them again and destroyed them now. And so what happens is we have these things called memory cells. So we have memory T and we have memory B cells. And so what's going to happen here with these memory cells, sorry, I crossed that out, these memory cells is they're going to do exactly as they state. They're going to create a blueprint for that invader's antigen, so those protein markers, and it's going to remember those for future exposures. So now, in the last step, what happens is we're going to see the suppressor T cells. And to suppress is going to be to stop. And so what this is going to do is send a signal out that tells the immune system to stop and to return to normal function. So again, just to review just in full, the pathogen or the antigen, that pathogen is going to break through and it has protein markers called antigens. The macrophage, large macrophage, is going to engulf it and place its protein markers on its membrane. At that point, a helper T cell is going to, which is a white blood cell as well, is going to then recognize that antigen on the macrophage's membrane and send chemical signals to the B cells and the killer T cells. It's going to tell the B cells to start producing antibodies. And antibodies are going to be proteins as well, and they're going to attach to the antigen, and then they're going to slow it down. Once it's slowed down, the macrophage is going to destroy them. Now, the killer T cell's job throughout the process is to destroy any mutated or infected cells, and it'll do just that. And then what happens is we're going to see these memory B and T cells. They're going to remember and create a blueprint for that antigen so that in the future, any exposures, it already will start to produce or have those antibodies that it can attack it quickly. Then the suppressor cells are going to, or what they're known as now are regulatory cells, but on your diploma they're going to be known as suppressor T cells. The suppressor cells are then going to end the battle, and they're going to send a signal and tell the immune system to return to normal function. Okay, so like I said, on your diploma, you need to know all the specific roles of these components of the immune response. You'll need to know which ones are white blood cells. You'll need to know their order from which a pathogen enters. You'll have to be able to place them in the correct order, and just understand the whole process and the steps involved. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Next screencast is going to talk about some immune system diseases. All right, thanks for tuning in. Bye.